Let us talk. What I'm going to come back to in just a minute is your letters in answer to the question, what would it take to for you to abandon Donald Trump? And you can compare them to the press. I want you to compare the level of your intelligence to the level of intelligence of the American press. And while you're at it, you can compare your intelligence to that of Hollywood, whose Oscar show dropped 20% to become the lowest rated ever. But they still won't stop because they need to tell you, they need to make you wise with their wisdom. We will compare you to them. So let's look at your answers. I asked the question after Trump made those remarks about, oh, we don't need due process to take people's guns away, and let's put Dianne Feinstein's restrictions, possibly on semi-automatic weapons, into the law. Remember Dianne Feinstein jumping around like a girl, and now he's talking about tariffs. And I'm not an economist with tariffs. That's why I haven't been talking about it in detail. I am very educated in the English language, and Trump is always afraid of a trade deficit. But they call it trade because you're trading stuff. So it doesn't really matter if there's a deficit because people are getting stuff on both sides of the equation. But I just wanted to know what it would take. So here, your answers were incredibly nuanced and intelligent. I couldn't believe these were people listening to my show. They were so smart and nuanced. 500 plus emails. Unbelievable. Intelligent people listening to my show. What is the world coming to? From Justin, he says, so I am off the Trump train for sure. This, I guess the gun remark, is the straw that broke the elephant's back. To your point, I understand that anything that comes from Trump's mouth should be taken with a grain of salt, but that is precisely why I'm no longer a fan. I don't want a weather-vane president. I want a rock. Unpredictability is great in sports and movies. It does not belong in the Oval Office. My neck hurts from the whiplash. So the very thing I see as a kind of defense, Justin sees as a problem. Like I say, well, he says these things, but he doesn't do them. He says, yeah, but that's not the way the Oval Office should work. And it's a very intelligent point. Stop making intelligent points on my show. You will ruin it. From Sandra, I cannot think of one thing that would cause me to vote for a Democrat instead of President Trump. That is because I do not have to agree with every single policy the president supports or implements. I do hope to agree with the majority of his policies. Because the recent years in which Democrats have been running things in this country have been so abhorrent to me in terms of economics, social engineering, packing our country with people who clearly mean to harm our country with drugs as well as violence, and everything else that made me so uncomfortable in my own country, the level of offense that President Trump would have to commit in order to make me vote for a Democrat is incomprehensible. As for his personal life, who am I to judge? It does not affect my life. Well, I agree with you there. And, I have to assume there is some level that Trump could go to be worse than Democrats. But, Sandra is right. I mean, what Democrats have done, and she's talking about drugs. Remember, Obama ditched the DEA's investigation into Iranian drug running in our country just so he could get his stupid deal and endanger us with Iranian bombs. So, yeah, the Democrats have been that bad. From Eric, the question of how far I will go in support of Trump is defined in the negative. So he says this, too. The question you should ask is how bad is the left? Everything I've seen in the Trump era confirms my worst thoughts about the left and then some. This tells me not only that the medicine is working, but proves the virulence of the disease. Apart from some criminal or fascistic turn, I'm with Trump, and even then it would be a matter of degree. Such is the sad state of our union. So he recognizes that this is not a good thing, but it's the way it is. Richard, for me to bail on President Trump, he would have to purposely commit a crime from which you could not look away. As for the politics, compromise should be used, just like you said, to a point. I am not a big fan of his Twitter use, yet I enjoy him fighting the liberals. David says, I have a red line that Trump can't cross, and it's not like Obama's red line for Assad. My line is the courts. Trump's been excellent so far because he's delegated nominations to Leonard Leo. It's conceivable that he could reverse himself on that, too, if the Democrats win control of the Senate. If he betrays his commitment to the Federalist Society, as he appears to be doing with the NRA, then he's dead to me. From Cooper, in my opinion, what gets me about this, though, is people are thinking in clear terms about what they stand for and what Trump stands for. And I went through a lot of those letters, and I did not get one that said Donald Trump, do or die. Not one, I mean, sometimes, what I wonder, sometimes I get those on my blog at PJ Media. I'll get people saying, Trump forever, God bless President. And what I wonder is, are those people actually leftists? Who go on pretending to be crazy right-wingers, but people are thinking about their country. Cooper, in my opinion, I think Trump is pacing and leading the left, much like he did with immigration in the campaign. He's working on the other side of the aisle. If he wants to lose 2020, he can do a repeat of Bush 1.0. He made the NRA turn on him. Guns are not something Trump wants to mess with. That is one of the only issues that would dramatically affect support from his base. I don't think he would make such a dumb mistake. From Alex, I'm a 23-year-old paramedic. I live and grew up less than 30 minutes from the Stoneham Douglas school shooting. I have supported the president since the day he announced. I remember exactly which emergency department room I was in, what I was doing when he announced, and when he won. I have been to the White House to see him and heard him speak all over the world. The day President Trump takes away the rights he swore to protect is the day I can no longer support him. The day he turns his back on us is the day we turn our backs on him. It doesn't have to be about guns. It has to be about the policies. He can say whatever he wants, and he says lots of crazy things, but you have to take them with a grain of salt. The day he puts into action the policies of tyranny instead of freedom, true tyranny, not the leftist BS, is the day I'm done with him. And that's a guy, see, there's a guy who loves Trump, has been with him from the start, but he just says, you know, if he violates what he said, if he violates his policies, I'm out. Let's see, I will just do one more. Well, let's do a couple more. From Chuck, if Donald Trump caves at all on the Second Amendment, he will lose my vote. From Robert, physical gun confiscation from me or my community. I would turn against God himself if he came for my gun. From John, if Donald Trump follows through with not standing up for the Second Amendment. So guns are a big deal. Guns are, a lot of people wrote in about guns. He says, from Norman, I think I have my finger on the pulse of knee-jerk Trump-supporting conservatives when I say there are two categories. Rhetorical, if Trump ever stops being the anti-PC culture war mercenary that I hired him to be, I will not support him. And the other is policy. There are a couple of policies, like the abolition issue in the 1800s, that simply have no compromise, abortion access, religious freedom. So really very nuanced, very intelligent, very thoughtful answers. If you're that bright, you should be doing something else with your time instead of listening to us. But no, I'm serious. I really appreciate it. And just to compare it to the conversation in the press. I mean, to compare it to them who are sitting around going, oh, 13 Russian trolls, it's worse than Pearl Harbor. I talked to Michael Barone about that. We have that coming up. We're going to have to take a break, but